All right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the May 13th, 2025 user group. It is a Tuesday here on May 13th, and it is pouring down rain here in the Richmond area. I hope everybody's staying dry. And kind of looking out my window here, it is not the prettiest day in the world, so it's a good day to be on the buyer user group meeting. Big thanks as always to Bree and Tony and Kim for some of their behind the scenes work, especially as those questions start to come in. And then in particular for Kim for hosting us and getting us started. And it was great to hear about all the things you guys are celebrating in May. If you're wondering what I'm talking about, and you're going, wait a minute, there was something before this video started. There is, if you're watching this as part of a recording and you'd like to join the user group, on the eVA homepage, there's a user group section of the eVA homepage, and you can reach out and make sure you get on the user group list and get invited to this meeting. So just a couple of things to think about. But let's go ahead and dig in today and get into some content. We'll run here to the top of the hour, which the time we're recording this and holding this meeting live today, it's right around 12 after 10 in the morning. So we've already done our welcome. Really going to do some level setting today and kind of establish kind of our focus on various projects, and then go over some recent releases, both some highlights from our April release, and then some look into the future for our May and June release. And then towards the end of the user group meeting, a very light demo today. As we get further along here into May and into June, and as we move into those months, we'll have some additional things to demonstrate for you guys. So we'll be excited to show you those things. But we do have a very small demonstration that will occur at the end of the meeting today. So great news is this is for those of you that have been on the user group or watched the videos. We always keep this slide on here for kind of the release management. The release notes have been updated. We did have a very traditional April release, which is great. So those release notes are out there for April. They get into a lot more detail, if you are so inclined, than what I'm getting into today. So again, those April release notes, and we're going to be very traditional throughout the rest of the year. We at right now we're scheduled to pretty much have a release each month. The November, December timeframe can sometimes get a little bit different just due to the holidays and the public procurement form, because we do need time for our team to test. But in the grand scheme of things, we're going to be pretty regularly scheduled throughout the rest of 2025 with our releases. But again, those release notes beginning to get updated again, and there is a link for the April 2025 release out there. And then as always, eVA tips, we got a great section of tips. That link takes you to the buyer tips, but once you get in there, you'll also see supplier tips. So you want to share those with any suppliers that you're in communication with as well. So let's dig in, talk about some high priority projects here, and start to focus on, give you guys a feel for some of the things that we are working on and some of our high priority items. The first one, it's been going on for a while. I think going back pretty much about a year, maybe a little longer than a year ago, this time in 2024, is our continued work and focus on rolling out the invoicing module. If you are an executive branch agency and have followed along, there was a PIM released not too long ago where invoicing is mandatory for our executive branch agencies. So that has gone out. But our focus here, when you're talking directly about eVA, is to continue to tweak, improve, and introduce new functionality around the invoicing module, as well as help our DPS team from a rollout perspective, training and support, and things like that. So a couple of the things happening with invoicing as we move forward here in 2025 is talked about it at the forum, kind of had a light demo of that. The configuration and some of the design work and changes are taking place right now, but the optical character recognition functionality, we're going to make a lot of progress on that in May and June, and we're looking like July that that'll be live and ready in production. Um, in May, we've got some changes coming as well. For those of you that have been in invoicing, there's a special workflow that handles purchase orders that were paid by P card. Basically, the point with that workflow is to make sure that we don't cut a check for something that's been paid by P card. This update we're going to do in May will give you a little bit of leeway if you need to shift something, uh, that maybe should have been paid by P card but wasn't, and then you can shift it up and actually get it authorized for a check, voucher, and check payment. So a little bit of flexibility we're going to bake into the workflow there. Absolutely, if you're thinking about, well, I wonder what Shane will demo when we meet again in July, you're probably going to see some of this stuff, particularly around invoicing, are going to be some things that we'll likely demo. Another one, just an efficiency driver, as we've talked to some of the agencies and begun the rollout process with our executive branch agencies. There are some cases from a three-way match scenario where you've got a perfect match. An invoice comes in, it gets linked to a PO, and the purchase order, receipt, and invoice match exactly. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing I got to dig into and look at. I've just got this perfect match. $100 order, received all of the order up to $100, and the invoice says $100. Well, I don't need to send that around and get a bunch of approvals on it, right? I've got all the elements that I need for three-way match to get that voucher process started. It doesn't need to go back to a business owner. If that hits my accounts payable team and they've determined, in some cases, they just want to boom, they just want to slam it through because it's ready to go. We're adding that in. There's a feature if it's the same approver. So let's assume an invoice comes in and it's, somebody in accounts payable is looking at that and they're like, I've got three-way match. This sucker's ready to go. They can assign it to themselves and basically hit approve, and they're doing that one time and it goes all the way through. So again, an efficiency driver does not have to be used, but it's an option. Again, we're giving you options here in invoicing. And then there's a supplier contact field on the invoice that comes in. It's really for informational purposes. If a supplier contact isn't available, we're sending email notifications and things like that to the ordering address email anyway. So just for suppliers that maybe don't have a designated contact, and we're just pulling that email address from the ordering address on the supplier record, we're making the supplier contact an optional field on the invoice. It doesn't always have to be set. So in any case, just some efficiency things and changes there. And really, really excited. We've been talking about OCR going all the way back to the fall at the forum. So really excited to get that in place. And then we'll be very excited to demonstrate that to you guys here in the user group and as well as all the agencies that are rolling out invoicing. That's going to be a huge game changer as far as efficiency and bringing transactions into eVA. Another high priority project that we're putting a focus on is our external contract number field. Now, again, for those of you that are in executive branch agencies, there's been a huge focus on getting contracts entered into eVA, entering catalogs or basically contract price list line items so that your end users can shop from those and that we know what goods and services are being purchased off of a contract. But we know there's not a perfect fit to every scenario. We've also got a lot of entities that do not use our contract module because they're not completely under our purview, like you folks in executive branch. So we're going to be making some usability and reporting improvements to the external contract number field. I don't have an exact date on that, and I probably should have put on there, I'm thinking more, it's not going to be May, obviously, but maybe some items coming in June, to begin the process for that. Certainly, for our July release, you'll start to see some changes around external contract number. This is absolutely a high priority situation for us. We'll not only talk functionality, but we'll talk about appropriate usage for this with a lot of you guys as well when we get to that point. So again, if you're wondering about summer demonstrations and things like that, this is absolutely an area where we'll put a little focus in, but more to come on the external contract number, but absolutely a high priority project for our team here at DGS and DPS. Staying in that realm, high priority projects is supplier cleanup. And we have begun, don't panic, nothing's happening yet, but we have begun the analysis on this. We have, and if you're doing math and you see the 147 and the 80, we have well over 200,000 active vendors in eVA. And it might be 149 or 147. It really doesn't matter, but you get the idea here. Over 147,000 plus suppliers have a long several years of inactivity in eVA. And I'm talking no orders, haven't logged in, haven't responded. You've got an active supplier profile. They've really done nothing, right? From an eVA perspective. Or they haven't in a long, long time, going back years and years and years and years. Close to 59% of our overall suppliers are in this condition, where we're not seeing any activity from this query we've run. Now, on the flip side, and it's still a lot of suppliers, 80,000 plus suppliers have some sort of activity. Some of them very frequent, and that's a smaller percentage of that 80,000. Some of them very frequent, where we're talking weekly or monthly interaction with eVA, be it a purchase order, logging in, responding to a bid, things like that. Or, a little bit less, less frequently, but, certainly interaction, every couple of months with eVA. And that leaves 80,000 suppliers in that list. What our plan is, we are going to, at some point, once we lock down our list, make a sweep and do some deactivations in eVA. We've got some additional analysis we want to do. We want to check our own eVA billing system. Do we have any of these inactive suppliers that have open invoices or bills with us? We want to check with Cardinal data as well. Luckily, DGS has access to the Cardinal data from an ability to query against it. And we kind of want to determine, hey, we've been the front door for some suppliers who maybe aren't doing procurements, but are getting paid in the Cardinal system. So we want to make sure there's, no outstanding payments and kind of figuring out how we do that check with that supplier list. But what our goal is with this and why we're doing this type of cleanup is improving our usability and selection of suppliers during the purchasing process. We are having a lot of situations, and certainly not only at DGS, but kind of across the board, people struggling to pick the right supplier. There's so many options and locations, and this first wave of this cleanup is all around that initial kind of low-hanging fruit. Can we clearly identify some suppliers that just are inactive? The other thing we're going to do, I probably should have put this in as a bullet point. I have had some organizations ask to see the list before we do anything, and I will absolutely make sure that those of you who have reached out to me and said, hey, before you do any cleanup, can we see the list? No big deal. I will absolutely be able to distribute that list of suppliers as we continue our analysis and get to the point, okay, this is the first set of suppliers that we're going to take some action on. And I'll make sure to share that list out where you guys can do your own checks. And not going to be real fancy. If you come back to us and say, hey, you can't deactivate this supplier, we'll knock them off the list. It's no big deal. This is kind of a first cut at this to see if we can hit that goal of improving usability and selection of suppliers during the purchasing process. So again, keeping that goal in mind, this first pass, if there's any question about what we would do with the supplier, we would leave them active. Okay, so it's going to take us a while, I figure, and letting, if you are so inclined, if you and your team would like to look at those lists, we'll get those to you, give you a little bit of time to look those over. But certainly, this is a high priority project for us from a cleanup perspective. So that's really right now 3 real high priority projects that we're digging into and spending a lot of time in. And again, hopefully, certainly, I know invoicing doesn't impact all of you, but certainly that's been a long time focus for us now, getting invoicing going, and then making some improvements with external contract number, making some improvements here with supplier. And then there'll be a couple other projects coming in. We've got some discussions going on, and I'll be able to share those with you the next time we gather, kind of give you an update how we're doing on these projects and then any other high priority ones that come in. So shifting out of that, let's talk about our releases where we're kind of across the board making updates and fixing all sorts of things. So let's talk about our April release, which it's funny, it's the April release. It actually went in May 1st, which was a Thursday night. But it was what we've lovingly called the April release. Went in the night of May 1st. So it was available in production Friday, May 2nd. And again, for you guys that really love to dig into every detail of the release, those release notes are on that link that I provided a few slides earlier. That's available off the eVA homepage if you want to really dig into every single item that came in during our most recent release. But here's a couple highlights for you. I'm going to show this to you. I'm not sure outside of our statewide teams, and that would be our VITA statewide team and our DPS statewide team, that this has a huge impact, but it's something that we did for our statewide teams. The ability from a contract management perspective to manage contracts where there is a prime contract supplier and then resellers to that prime contract. I'm going to show you that very briefly today. It is in production. It is available. Again, let's be real careful with that if it's not a fit for the type of contracts that you have in place. But it's certainly something I want to show you guys. If you have questions about that, please reach out to your account executive. Please reach out to our team or both of us. And we can kind of walk you through our thought process there. The idea with the prime reseller contract management functionality is it's for small engagements. We're not talking about a situation where you potentially have thousands of resellers or hundreds of resellers. We're really talking about a smaller engagement where the management of that contract and those resellers is really being handled by the Commonwealth or by a state entity. In some capacity. But again, that's one of our demo items that I want to just touch on very briefly so you can see it and have an understanding of what's going on, because certainly you may be purchasing from those contracts, because a lot of the contracts that are going to be set up like that are going to be statewide, right? They're going to be a statewide contract that you and your entity might be leveraging to buy from. Really, from a purchasing perspective, doesn't change too much. There's not anything different there. But I can show you that back end and the management side of that. Some other things that went into the April release. Really glad to get these in, but fixes that I know have been a big issue for everyone out there. The allocation percentage, you would make changes to the line item and you could do the percentages on your allocations. And you'd go in and change a line item and it would blow up all your allocation percentages. It wouldn't automatically adjust based on the changes you made. That fix has gone into production. So excited to get that in and make that problem go away. For those of you that use Cost Center in your accounting and allocation structure, there was a little issue with the search on that. You could search by number, Like I know my cost center, my cost code is 609 for eVA. I could type in 609 and it would come up, but if I did like, eVA or e-procurement program, the text search wasn't working. Well, luckily, we've got that search filter fixed in the allocations field. So again, some fixes that came in back in April. Some invoicing fixes or changes that went in. We do require uh, a copy of the supplier invoice. There's a section for that on the invoice, and we do require the supplier invoice attachment to be on the eVA generated invoice. So that's a great record keeping requirement so that whatever documentation, whatever invoice, the supplier version of that it gets submitted, making sure we capture that on the invoice record within eVA. So that's just kind of making sure that, hey, we've got this invoice transaction in eVA that we're using to do the through a match and to mark it as okay to pay. But then you would always have the supplier version of the invoice also attached to that record. So, auditability, your ability to get to that, making that required. So that came in April. And then allowing creation of non-PO invoices. So some of our entities that we've talked to that are working through rolling out invoicing, they're like, wow, once we kind of shift to electronic invoicing and we're doing procurement-based invoice approvals and authorization, could we handle non-PO invoices? Could we start to consider what that looks like and just doing our invoice authorization for non-PO invoices? Absolutely. A little bit more work to be done there, but one of the things we did in eVA was allowing the creation of a non-PO based invoice. And again, you can run that through approval flow and get a non-PO invoice approved as well. Little tweak to supplier response. There is an email that suppliers get when they turn in a response or when they submit a response. It wasn't, there's a section on there that we have made sure looks good. But on that email that a supplier gets back, they get the date and time of the submittal is on the email. So the supplier gets your response was submitted, and then they get a date and time on that response submitted email. So that can be helpful to the suppliers as kind of a feel good for them that, all right, at this date and time, my submitted response was taken in to the eVA system, and that's now in the email that they get. And we had one more additional fix there for April for our SWAM. The SWAM expiration job, what we do in eVA is we capture SWAM, small, micro, minority, women-owned, whatever that may be, and we have a certification start date and certification end date. There was no impact to that, but when the certification end date hit, we actually remove the certification fully out of eVA. It gets removed from the supplier profile. That wasn't happening. The expiration dates were accurate. It's just that removal piece was not occurring. So we got a little update and a little fix on that, to make sure that the SWAM is then fully removed and pushed out of eVA. So a little fix there in April. That was some of the highlights from the April release. And again, if you want to dig into those further, there were a lot of other items around data and some fixes and some other things that we did. You can certainly go out to our release notes and see the full summary of the April release that is linked above in this presentation. And then, also, obviously, that link is on the eVA homepage. So let's shift over to our May release. And these are items that'll be coming at the end of May. It's kind of, I'm pretty sure the way the calendar's falling, it's that last Thursday in May. So the last Thursday in May, and then these items would be in production, that last Friday in May. A couple things that are coming in. Several of our punch out catalogs, we have a handful of them. We're throwing a missing basket ID error. It's not always consistent. We're going to go ahead and get that fix in for May, which will be nice. Some more invoicing changes there. You see the update to the P card workflow, some additional updates there. The auto approve. You know what? I've repeated my invoicing things from May into that was actually April changes that are sitting in May. So I apologize for that. Invoicing is really, there'll be continued OCR work. So sorry about that. Mistake by your author here on that, but there'll be some OCR work and some additional things going on there in invoicing. Oh, wait. I'm sorry. I'm confusing myself. I talked about this. I thought I talked about that in April. I talked about this as part of our high priority project. So these are the 3 items. Ooh, Tuesday morning on a rainy Tuesday, right? These are the 3 items that I talked about as a high priority project. They will be coming in May, and that's noted in the slides above that these are May items. So I've talked about these. These are the 3 May items that are part of the invoicing updates. So I've talked about those. We won't hit them again. Sorry for my confusion there. Also in the May release, for those of you that went to the forum now going back 2 forums ago, and if you had any concerns about this, big thanks to Tony. Got a bunch of requests consolidated, and a lot of these are coming into May to fix our print transactions. So adding the name field, and the name being that you might also call it the description field. Adding the name field to the rec PO and receipt. So that description field on each of those transactions will go into the print. Eliminating a lot of the blank spaces and pages on the PO print. So it's a little bit more consolidated and concise. Adding buyer email and phone number to the PO print. Adding the P card holder name, email, and phone to the PO print, particularly if it's different. You know, if I've got somebody that actually keyed in the request and then the P card holder maybe is different, making sure those are clearly pointed out and different. Emphasizing change orders on the PO print so that on the PO print itself, it's very clear you're dealing with a change order. Making sure the supplier contact email is always displayed, no matter what. Either the supplier contact email is being pulled from the supplier contact itself or from the ordering email address. So there, no matter what, there is logic that on the PO print, there is an email for the supplier there so that we have a email that the supplier has entered into eVA, be it off of the contact or off of the supplier ordering address. We have an email there. And we're also emphasizing that a PO is associated with a P card, or as we like to call it, a P card order on both the PO print, or the notice of the order that is going to the supplier. So emphasizing and trying our best to make sure we don't get invoiced for it and all that other fun stuff, that the supplier has received a P card order. So trying to make some improvements there. So thank you guys so much for your patience on all of these print transactions. I know it has been a long time coming, getting some of these changes and fixes in, and we're excited to get those resolved. And actually, I know there's one more change coming. We'll talk about that as part of the June release. So one more change coming around PO print. But again, thanks to Tony. He's kind of been the consolidator, taken all the notes, put these things together, and worked with CGI to get them scheduled. So we're excited to see these. Excited to see these coming in. Continuing on the May release, and this is an area I'm going to demo for you. It's really for informational purposes at this point. I don't want everybody to panic and flip out and go, "What is this?" We are adding a field back to the rec header, and the field is called program. All right. So at the end of May, you're going to create a rec, and all of a sudden, and I'm going to show you what it looks like in UAT. this program field is going to be coming back and it's going to be on the header. To be clear, program is also a term used for allocating. This doesn't impact the line item allocations. This is not a change to the line item allocations. But there is some functionality in eVA that can help us with reporting, help us maybe potentially with construction, help us with some needs for some of our oversight agencies. And the first step in working ourselves to that is turning this program field back on the rec header. So again, we're doing nothing but getting that field re-enabled. It's much like, for those of you, when we turned on invoicing in production, even if you're not using it, an invoicing tab popped in there for all you guys. So it has no impact to your business. Again, this is not a change to any accounting or allocating that is done at the line item level, but it is simply some prep work we are doing as we look at this functionality that Evalua or eVA calls program. So more to come on that, but I wanted to be clear, we are turning this back on, so you will see a field there on your rec header called program. You can touch it and do things, but it's not going to have any impact. I would suggest leaving it alone. There's no functionality or anything happening right now. And I'll show you this real quick today. Again, just ignore it at this point. And I know that's hard to do. It's like when you say, don't touch this button, and everybody wants to touch the button. But that's why I wanted to talk about it today. But again, more to come on that functionality and how it's going to be used, and all sorts of fun stuff around that. Continuing on, some fixes that are desperately needed in sourcing and contracting. Public contracts, if you've sent somebody out to look at your public contracts and to try to pull a document down, there is actually, it also impacts supplier registration. You will get error messages like, page cannot be displayed, and these weird errors, and it looks like it's broken, and it's annoying, and it just doesn't work right. And we've got lots of tickets coming into customer care. We've got lots of complaints going to our account executives. Tracy Robinson, our sourcing and contracting lead, we're getting inundated because it has been a massive problem since the upgrade. We are mercifully getting a fix in for that, so those error messages will go away. That actually hit UAT yesterday. Tracy, if you're out there, thank you so much. She got the testing done for that late yesterday. That has passed, and I'm hoping you'll see my little note that says emergency. I'm hoping that potentially sometime today that will go in off cycle as an emergency fix to get that fix put into place to fix the public contract navigation and pulling of attachments and things like that, and our supplier registrations as well. I know that doesn't impact people as much here, but it was really the same issue. Our suppliers would come in to register, and then boom, their page would blow up, and they're like, well, even registration's down. There are workarounds and things like that, but hopefully in a very, very short period of time, I'm hoping today that emergency fix is going to go into production, and we're going to make that issue go away. There's also some fixes coming in to optimize sourcing and contracting. We're continuing on occasion to get some weird timeouts, some weird error messages when our end users are working in sourcing, working in contracting, loading documents. There's all sorts of things. So some timeout and optimization fixes just to get that corrected. So that is a May item as well. And then I know those of you that use sourcing, there were some additional fixes to you had a weird error message. You're getting ready to submit your sourcing event, and you got a no contact ID error message. And we did some cleanup earlier to fix most of those, but we were still seeing some issues around this. So kind of the final fixes coming in to improve and just make that experience, I'll just call it normal, in our sourcing and contracting area. So really, really excited there for those to come in. And again, the public contracts and the supplier fix is coming in as an emergency, and we'll hopefully get that sometime this week. I'm even hoping for today. So get that knocked out and out of the way. Shifting out of May, that's kind of the highlights from our May release. And again, we'll post release notes and all that kind of fun stuff. And all these May items are in UAT right now. So for those of you that play around in UAT, you may see some of these things. Shifting over, got a couple things we know are going to go into the June release. And those June release items, one more print transaction thing. There's some rounding issues with print PO. We're going to get those resolved in the June release, and that will really finish off our print transaction requests and really knock that out. And then I've kind of hinted and mentioned this several times, but our first round of OCR updates, there's likely to be some things going in June. And that's really prepping us for right now what's looking like the full July release, or getting our first, kind of OCR release into the July release. So you might see a couple rounds and some smaller items going in June to kind of prep us for that. And then I have a final note there. Additional items will be added as we progress through May. So this June list is going to grow. I kind of mentioned external contract number earlier. You could see some of those items or a couple bits and pieces of, some of the work we want to do for external contract number coming in June. Depending on how quickly we work on that supplier cleanup, you might see a couple things in June for that, but more to come as the June release kind of begins to bake itself out, and as we figure out what's going into June. So that's really a look, and we've really summarized what are our high priority projects here at DGS DPS. What did the April release, some of the highlights, and then some highlights for both our May and June release. So appreciate you guys listening to more of a lecture here today as we kind of set the table and give you guys a little bit of a vision for what's going on in the future. So what I am going to do is we're going to shift into our demo now, and just really, it's not a very long detailed demo, and that's good because we're beginning to run up on time here this morning. Is we're going to look very quickly. I just kind of want to show you the that prime reseller contract management functionality so you can get a little feel for that. And then just real quick, show you where the program field's going to be on the requisition again, so that you can get that message out to your people. Don't panic. Again, I can't say it enough. No impact to allocating. Okay. I know some of you may use a similar allocation called program. It is not the same. We may even change the name of the label on the rec header, but we're just getting that field turned on in production, and that's coming as well. So I want to show you that so that there's, try to kind of just get in front of that if any questions come in on that. So let me stop my share here. I'm going to bring up eVA, and bear with me while I make the switch. All right. Give a minute for that to come up. Okay, that should have come back over there. So now we are back in eVA, and I am in UAT. I have already navigated myself over to browse contracts, and I've narrowed my contracts down to contracts that I am the responsible party or contract manager, however you want to look at it. And again, keep in mind I'm in UAT. That this is all test data and things like that. So real quick, what you'll notice if you're browsing contracts is you may start to see a new contract type, and here it is right here, where that contract here is listed as a reseller. All right, you can always come over here to contract type, and if you don't want to see those, just knock them out. right? So you see them over here in your filter list as well. If you're like, I don't care about resellers, it confuses me, come over here to your filter, do master agreement, and you don't have to see those reseller records. And again, I don't know that there's any in production right now, but this functionality is in our production area and is available for use. And again, I can't stress enough that it's, hey, we actually do this at my agency. I need to understand this. Reach out to us, reach out to, my team, your account executive, and we'll talk to you about the application of this. But it's really easy. I will take you into this master agreement here that has reseller records. So I'm just going into a contract record. You will notice the create child contract button is back, because really a reseller record for us is just a child contract. And I'll show you what that looks like in a second. But where I wanted to take you here was our hierarchy page. So all contracts have a hierarchy. If you click on that, you'll notice I have a prime contract, or the main contract holder. And that's really, again, where you have the contract with the prime contract, right? That's who the contract is with. And then underneath that, for this example, I have two reseller records. So this is my shoes contract that I have set up, and we have Callaway Golf, TaylorMade Golf, and Blue Ridge Golf. So my prime is Callaway, and then TaylorMade and Blue Ridge are resellers on this contract. So you see that little setup here. So the one difference you will notice is I am on the master agreement. So go back to the header, the master agreement. Oops, didn't mean to hit Copilot there. Excuse me. I am on the master agreement, right? And so I have all of the things you would expect in a full contract record: contacts, negotiated terms, price lists, orders. If you're doing, there's some performance management things baked in there, documents, workflow, the ability to do expenditures and subcontractors. It's a full contract record. If I navigate to one of the resellers, and now I am on the reseller record, you'll notice there's a couple differences. Number one, a link back to the parent contract supplier, a reference back to the parent agreement that is here. So a couple changes. And you'll also notice on a reseller record, it's much less information, because really all I'm putting up is a price list, maybe a separate punch out count, a separate price list for the items, because you are actually making the purchase in this case with the reseller under the agreement of the prime. But the purchase, the PO itself, is actually going, in this case, to TaylorMade Golf instead of the parent supplier, because they are an authorized reseller on this contract. But again, it's much less information on here on the reseller record. They do have the ability to load a price list. In this case, I've got a very simple example, just one line item. And then if I go to the hierarchy tab, again, I can navigate in between all the records. And then you also get a little spend summary. So in this case, Callaway Golf and TaylorMade Golf have purchases, right? There have been purchases made, to the prime and to one of the resellers on this particular contract. So your ability to track orders both at the entire contract itself or at a group of or individual resellers, that's really what we're doing here from a management perspective. And on this reseller record, I can click over the orders, and there you can see under this agreement, there was a shoe purchase to TaylorMade. I can shift back to my prime supplier, and I'm back on the prime record. And then same thing, you'll notice there was an order for Callaway Golf, the prime supplier, as well. And then again, back on the hierarchy, you get a little summary, of all the spend that has happened, kind of across the entire contract hierarchy. So I just wanted to show you guys that. If you feel like it applies to you, please reach out and we'll work with you on that. The way you set these up is pretty simple. When you're on a prime or you're on the master agreement, you say create child, you hit OK, a pop-up screen comes up, and then the contract type, there's only one option at this point. You would select reseller, and then you can choose to pull over some elements there. And I'm actually not going to move forward with that in this case. I'm not going to set up another reseller record, but I hope that gives you an idea of what we're doing here. And the last thing I want to show you today, as we're almost up on time, I'm just going to pop over to Browse Recs. I'll filter this down. I think I have one in draft. There we go. And I'll show you, there's that program field. So that is the new field that will come in. Again, more to come on that as we work on the program field. I just didn't want anybody to see that and panic or be confused about why it's there. Again, more to come. No impact to accounting allocations, things like that, but that's where it's going to live. But again, more information to come on how we're going to use that. We just decided no harm, no foul. We're going to flip that on and have that ready in the rec so that we can prep ourselves to do some other things around this field, because there are some cool functions and stuff like that. So with that, we are 3 minutes away. And I've seen some questions come in and disappear. And I know Bree and Tony and Kim are working hard behind the scenes. I'm going to stop my sharing. And I don't know if there's any question you want me to deal with outside of thanking people for their time today.
Yeah, well, just a few. So there was one specific, and Bree is actually typing an answer, but I think that everyone could benefit from it. So the meaning they of a master contract versus resellers. So one of the example was we solicit for a multi-award contract and have 10 vendors awarded that each have separate contracts. Would they be considered a
Those are master
reseller?
agreements.
Right.
If you have a contract and that supplier is going to sign that agreement and their name is on a contract record, it's a master agreement. A reseller, you do not have a contractual agreement with a reseller. They operate and sell those goods as part of the prime. So you're doing the contract management and the work with the prime. So if a reseller screws up and isn't performing, you're going back to the prime because that's who your agreement is with to deal with that. So again, that example, I have 10 awarded suppliers and they're going to physically, each is signing. That is a separate master agreement.
Right.
Now, you
Because
can use some other fields, and you should talk to your A about this. Well, I want to tie those together. You can use the description field. You can use the reference number. There's some things you can do to conceptually tie those together so that there's a little bit of logic. And, reach out to our team, reach out to your account exec, and we can help you kind of, make that easier potentially on your end users or your management side to do something to tie those records together.
all right. And I think that that wraps everything up. We had a lot of questions behind the scenes that were addressed. Yvonne Cash, you had asked a specific question related to getting some information from your account executive. So I would encourage you to circle back with them. And then there was a question about running the 211 report to select a particular receipt and print it. And they should also hopefully be able to answer questions around which reports will give you what information. So please circle back with your account executive and they should be able to support you. If for some reason you're not getting a response or you need to loop someone else in, you always have the option to fill out that buyer assistance request form and they will get that forwarded over to your account executive to follow up with you about that particular issue or question, or they'll already know that, hey, this is being worked and they will get back to you as soon as they can. Thank you so much for all the interaction, taking time out to join us today. look for the playback to be shared later today, posted on our website, hopefully at the very least by tomorrow. And look forward for an EVA Extra next month. And then we will have our user group during the summer. So we'll see you all back for the official virtual user group in July. And then we'll be powering full steam ahead into the fall and the forum. So we look forward to maybe sharing some information about what you can expect for that during our July user group. Thank you so much. You guys have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.